What's going on, ladies and gentlemen and ladies? Welcome to another interview. I try to do them almost every Tuesday. When I have an interesting person that I feel is invaluable for us to hear from, I'll have them on my show. We'll do an interview. We talk about whatever we want to talk about. This is the way it is. So I want to just introduce this before I bring on my guest. A lot of people heard about the Breonna Taylor case. I mean, it was probably the biggest case in American history other than George Floyd. And it was full of misconceptions. People were consistently lying and making up stories about what happened, disingenuous in their approach to push an agenda. And I feel like that it was necessary for me to clear the air. I wanted to interview Sergeant Mattingly, who was the sergeant who got shot, who was there, who saw it all go down, who was engaged in a firefight. And so I wanted to bring him on so guys can have a full perspective. You can hear exactly what happened. You don't have to worry about speculation. You don't have to hear it from these pundits on television. You can hear it straight from the man himself. But if you're unfamiliar with the Breonna Taylor case, it was a young lady who they claim she worked in a hospital and that she wasn't doing nothing, didn't do nothing, was sleeping in a house, and the cops just blew in her house and start shooting and killing her. That's pretty much the rhetoric that was pushed, although that's the furthest thing from the truth. Her boyfriend decided that he wanted to pull a gun and shoot police officers as they lawfully entered her residence, and pretty much the rest is history. So I want to give you guys a few minutes to get in. I know that this thing is taking a long time to kind of get everybody in and get notification. So I want you to have an opportunity to jump in here before I bring Sergeant Mattingly on so we can have this conversation. So thank y'all. Welcome. I appreciate all the comments. Thank you, Sky. I see Sky's in the house. People from Diamond Lake, Oregon in the house. So shout out to y'all. But I'm going to bring him in just in a few seconds. Let me do some housekeeping while I have you here. So I have a channel called Tatum Clips. If you ever see it out there, it's not a fake channel. That's my channel. I cut down and condense my videos to smaller clips that you guys can have the opportunity to watch at a later date. Also, the Tatum Squad. If you're interested in being a part of the Tatum family, being a part of a more robust community, the TatumSquad.com, you can go on, hit the link, join the squad. We will start doing our Bible study and stuff and start ramping it up here soon. But if you're interested, jump on in there. What else do I have? The Officer Tatum store, get your merch there. When we have the holiday special, I'll let you guys know. You can get it there. We'll develop more product as soon as I get a person who I feel can adequately design my merch the way I like it. I don't do stuff cheap. I don't do stuff halfway. So I need somebody, legit to do it. I have a few people in mind, so we're gonna touch base with them. So make sure you hit the like button, share this video, so people can have an opportunity to see what's going on here. It's really weird. I don't know if we're not getting notifications or not. I don't know if I titled it, they're suppressing the video or not, but we're going to get into this interview. All right. So without further ado, y'all welcome Sergeant Mattingly. What's up, brother?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Let me fix my microphone. I got the microphone on the wrong thing. So let's see. Okay, I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
Man. Yeah. How you doing, man?
Good. How you, man?
I'm glad to see you here, man. A lot of people are anticipating hearing from you, especially because of the Breonna Taylor case. And I know it's an older case, but I think it's fair to be able to articulate the truth behind all the things that had happened and kind of an update on where you're at today. So if you don't mind, just introduce yourself just a little bit, give them a little background of how you got involved in the Breonna Taylor case and who are you in the big scheme of things when it comes to Breonna Taylor and the shooting and all of that.
All right. Well, I was on the Louisville Metro Police Department for 21 years. A year and a half ago, a year and 7 months ago, whatever it was, we were asked to help on a case that involved 5 different locations. So it was a manpower intensive case that needed 40, 50 bodies. We volunteered for an apartment that night. We showed up, we did our brief, we went, did the apartment, we knocked on the door, announced, banged several times, kept announcing ourselves as police, even got to an argument with the guy upstairs who came out, wouldn't go back in his house. And when they never came to the door, And when it was time to finally go in and make entry, because you can't stand outside forever, you've been on SWAT, you know how it goes. A minute at a front door seems like an eternity.
Yeah.
And not knowing what's on the other side. So we're banging, announcing. At one point, the guy with the Ram hears somebody inside, and he says, "Man, I think I heard somebody inside." We stopped. We again announced, trying to get them to respond to us. They never announced. So my boss, who was on the scene at the time, said, "Go ahead and hit the door." So when we hit the door, I cleared the right side of the room. Before we stepped into the doorway, there was no fatal funnel error where everybody climbed in it, like people have said. We sliced the pie from right to left till we ran out of real estate with our eyes. Couldn't see down the hall. As soon as I stepped in the doorway to clear the hallway, the Kenneth Walker standing at the end of the hall, had his gun stretched out. And as soon as I turned the corner, he fired, and I returned some shots.
Right. So you in that situation, people are making up, or at least they had the perception. And I think I've debunked that 1,000 times, but people had the perception that you guys did not have a right to enter Breonna Taylor's home. She wasn't a part of the investigation. She was sleeping in her bed. Can you articulate kind of the myth surrounding that?
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. So I personally wasn't involved in the background investigation of this, but I did know some of it based on the briefing that we had. And they had some pictures they showed us. And Jamarcus Glover was the main target of this investigation. Him and another guy named Adrian Walker, who has since been murdered. But Jamarcus Glover was the main target. She had dated Jamarcus off and on for several years. He had moved from another state. Some bad criminal history in the background between those two. One of them was attempted murder on a guy, the other assaults and different things that had gone on. So these weren't good guys. He had been locked up in our system. I believe he had 8 felony cases going on at this time in our circuit court, and they just kept letting him out. And that's a huge problem in our system, man. Nobody's ever held accountable. And therefore they put officers in these bad spots, because these guys, number one, don't want to go back to prison. But number two, they feel like they're invincible because they just keep getting let out. So here, Breonna was this guy, Jamarcus Glover, used her address for his driver's license, used her address 2 months prior when he had just gotten bailed out of jail. Breonna had bailed him out of jail previously. The car was registered there to her address. He's on video and camera or photos coming back and forth from her house. They've got him on camera, still photos bringing out postal packages from her house, and then tracking him back down to Elliott Avenue where the trap house was, where they were selling. They've got her on video in a vehicle with him pulling up to Elliott Avenue. She never got out of the car, but she was in it. You can see her. He goes into Elliott, drops the dope off, comes back out. So she was in this. And after the fact, when he's in jail, after the tragedy that night, Jamarcus Glover's in there talking about how Breonna's got his money to his baby mama. And the baby mama's pissed off. I mean, she's mad that he's got his money. She said, "How come I'm not holding your money?" And he said, "Man, baby, I got to spread it out." And so he said, "She's got my money. She's got other guys' money. I know for sure she's got 14,000 of mine right now." And so, while I think, in my personal opinion, I think Breonna was used by these guys. That's a lot of what these dope dealers do. They take these girls and they use them and they manipulate them. But the fact is, she was right in the middle of it. And it's sad, but that's what put us there that night, was all the there's some questions about the warrant as far as the parcel, as far as the Postal Service verifying it. But if you look in the 4 corners of the warrant, there's enough probable cause. Even if you took the postal package out, there's plenty of probable cause there that the warrant still stands active.
Yeah, and I think people are, I think people that watch my channel, I mean, they know better than to think that this was some type of botched situation. Breonna Taylor was heavily involved with this gentleman. I grew up with family members doing the same thing, and they've gone to prison since for being involved in drug dealing. And people, they do the same thing. They get these young women that love them, that want to be a part of the gang, want to hang out, want a dude that's a dope boy that got money, and they hang out with these people and they use them, especially young women without criminal records, a young woman that's less likely to be suspected of doing stuff. They use them, they use their address, they launder money through them, they do all of the above, and then they end up getting popped, and the girl is collateral damage. So you got shot How was that, man? I mean, you got shot in the leg. I think it hit your femoral artery. You know, how did that whole thing happen when you got shot? Well, you know, what was going through your mind?
Well, the first thing was we had an instructor in the academy named Travis Hatchell who taught us. I mean, he hammered this in our head. He said, "You're never out of the fight. I don't care if you get shot. I don't care if somebody's mounted you and beating the snot out of you. You're never tell yourself you're out of the fight." And he taught us how to constantly play scenarios in your head. If this happens, here's how I'm gonna react. Not here's how I might react. Here's this is that warrior mentality that we talk about. That people go, "Oh man, you cannot have a warrior mentality because you're not fighting people on the street. They're not the enemy." But you have to have a warrior mentality out here to survive. I don't care if you're Joe Citizen nowadays. You've got to have that mentality. And it's not that I'm going to kill somebody. It's that I'm going to survive. That's the warrior mentality. And so when I turned that corner and I saw the barrel of that gun, my eyes zoomed, my focused in right there on that barrel of that gun. And by that point, it was too late because reaction slower than action. And as soon as that gunshot went off, I returned fire and I felt the hit in my leg. And it felt like, I don't know, maybe a sledgehammer hitting your leg. It wasn't that painful, to be honest, but I knew I was shot. And so after I returned fire, I put my hand down on my leg and I felt the blood. Now I had a pair of pants on. It was still cool out. And I had a pair of pants on that had a liner on the inside, like a felt liner. And so a lot of the blood was getting absorbed in my pants, but I could still feel a large pool of it in my hand. And so I sat down on my hip, on my right hip, and I scooted back because Miles started firing above me. And I thought in my mind, man, I don't want to get shot by my own guy. You don't know what's going on. We're in this little bitty area that's got metal and concrete. And so everything's just echoing. And you don't know where the shots are coming from. I mean, it's happening so quick. And so once I realized I was shot, I thought, man, I got to get out of here. So I jumped up and hobbled out to the curb. And that's when my lieutenant came and they got a tourniquet and put it on my leg. And I'll tell you what, the gunshot, it hurt, but that tourniquet, man, that's a pain, buddy. I don't want to go through that again.
Yeah, we used to, have to train in the academy and put tourniquets on each other, and we would crank it down pretty good. But they would tell us we would crank it down to where people couldn't handle it. They were like, "Oh, it hurt too bad." They go, "Okay, at this point, you have to crank it down 3 or 4 times more than what you're doing right now, because essentially you have to choke off all of the blood supply as much as you can in the area, so that you don't lose large amounts of blood." But after all of this happened, man, it blew up in the media. I knew for a fact after doing SWAT call outs and different things like that, I thought it was interesting you guys didn't have body worn cameras, but I'm gonna let you explain that. But the overall perspective of what happened, I knew that it was too juicy. They were claiming that this girl wasn't involved, that you guys had hit the wrong house, and that she was sleeping in the bed and she got killed that way. And just being in law enforcement and understanding when things are too juicy, it probably is, seeing that they had pushed this rhetoric, I knew that, man, I need to take a little more time, get a little more information before I make a judgment call, because this sounds way too bizarre. So let's talk about the body worn camera thing, because people may not understand why you guys in particular didn't have a body worn camera.
Okay. So a few of the guys still had them assigned to them that were on that raid that night. But I'll explain why I didn't have one. So narcotics in 2016, our major presented to the department when the department was full-blown body cams, that I was in, there's street squads in narcotics and there's major case. And for a while, for about 1.5 years, 2 years, I was the major case sergeant. And we worked with FBI and DEA, and a lot of those cases, you just can't wear a body cam for safety of how protocols go. But the main reason is in narcotics why you don't wear them is because you cannot survive. You cannot be a good narcotics detective without informants. And if you're walking into, if I hit B. Tatum's house and I need you to flip on Joe Blow over here, who's a big dope dealer, and I'm wearing this big camera, and I'm going, okay, talk to me. What do you got? You're going to look at me and go, man, I'm not talking with that thing recording me. There's no way. And the big thing is, for the sake of transparency, the department gives out everything that's asked for on open records, right? So if I go and I hit your house, and the next day or 2 days or a week later or whatever it is, I hit your supplier, then suddenly their defense attorneys are good enough to go, all right, let me see these body cams of these detectives. And they start going through them and they go, do you know this guy? Do you know this guy? Because attorneys, man, they are not on the up and up. I mean, they're some shady guys, and so it was mainly for the safety of the informants. Now, do I wish I had one that night? Heck yeah. I wouldn't even know you. I wouldn't talk to you because you wouldn't know who I was. I'd be nobody. I'd still be working.
Right.
But that's the reason. Now, the couple guys that did have them, the reason they had them is because if you worked off-duty jobs in a uniform capacity, you're required to be issued a body cam just for that sake.
Yeah, so that makes sense. I mean, people have to understand it. We were on a SWAT team. We didn't have any body-worn cameras. One reason is because the exploitation of tactics. You know, if we had body-worn cameras and people could go back and look at the camera and see how we set up on a house, see where our codes are. I mean, because they're all verbalized. You know, we're talking between one another. You know when they're going to throw the bang. All of our different tactics that we use that should be secured tactically, people will have access to it. I mean, they would literally be playing Call of Duty if they had a body-worn camera and watching the RAM, watching you know, the lead guy go in and clear out a house and going through bedrooms and the way we do our operations, what vehicles we drive, what the vehicles look like. I mean, all of those things would be compromised through body-worn camera. So people should understand certain specialty units do not carry the body-worn camera for multiple different reasons. So after all of this happened, I mean, you were scrutinized. I mean, they really want to put all of y'all in prison, making all these claims of racism. Clearly, I've had a chance to meet you. You know, there is no evidence whatsoever of you being a racist person or anybody else, you know, that I've talked to about being racist. While you were on the department, I mean, did you ever, now I know it happens, but did you ever, you know, get exposed to somebody or work with somebody who you believe was a racist?
No, I don't think so. There's times where, like, maybe an off-color joke was told that you were like, ugh, you know, that wouldn't go over well. But no, I've never once. And, you know, with the interview with Strahan, he asked this, and I said, not one time did I see anybody go, hey, there's a black guy, we got to stop him. Or we got to stop his car because it's full of black people. It's just not the way it goes. We are trained in such a way that you're looking for criminal activity, period. You don't care if they're black, white, male, female, an alien. It don't matter. You're looking for criminal activity, and that's your job out there. And it's not to discriminate against black or white. And it depends on what end of town you're put in also. Because if you're putting a mainly minority into town, then naturally on your stop forms that you have to fill out saying you stopped, you know, 2 black people in a car and you got to check the boxes, it's going to look like proportionately you stop more black people. But if you're in an area that's 85, 90% black, that's who you're going to stop. But to answer your question, no, I never saw any overt racism on the police department.
Same with me. You know, I was obviously, I think you're in Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in Arizona, and in one of the most dangerous cities of Arizona, in Tucson. And Tucson is, our police department is majority white, and then it was Hispanic, and then it probably was another race because it was like 12 black dudes on the police department. So it wasn't a lot of black people on the police department. And then when you look at the breakdown of the city, it was majority white, and then you had pockets of Hispanic and black. And there were some officers that were a-holes, man. I mean, some of them I wanted to beat up on my own. Some of them I wish they would have gotten fired. They were rude jerks. But, you know, unfortunately, you can't fire somebody because they're not a nice person that know how to communicate well. But, you know, I've never seen, even out of those corny officers, I never seen any of them that were overtly racist. And I've seen opportunities or situations where they were rude to a minority person, and that person took it as, oh, they just doing it because I'm black. And in my mind, I'm like, no, they rude to everybody, even other police officers. They just suck as a person. And so I never saw anybody who would project anything of a racial nature. You know, if anything, it was the exact opposite, man. You had to go up and beyond to support anybody who called 911 or anybody who needed service. You didn't get to, you know, go out there and, you know, say, is it a black person I'm responding to? Well, I can't do that one. I want to go to where the white people at. That wasn't a choice that you had, and nobody cares because color don't kill you. Weapons do. You know, use of force is not based on the color, it's based on the behaviors of a person. So once all of this stuff blew up, man, I mean, you got a lot of backlash. Explain that to the audience. Like, what happened to your life when you got out of the hospital, you know, probably before you got out of the hospital, after this Breonna Taylor thing blew up? Did I freeze? I think I must have frozen. I think he'll come back soon. If you guys missed it, the question I asked was, how did his life unfold after Breonna Taylor and that whole thing blew up? I'll get him back on camera once his camera fixed. I think it looked like he's frozen. But you guys may remember this just a little bit. You know, I'll speak to just from my perception, and then we'll be able to hear from his perception. You know, obviously he went through it, but it hit the fan, man. They were painting these officers on the Breonna Taylor case as racist. They shot her only because she was black. Black people can't even sleep in their own bed. They wanted these people to be hung from a tree, man. They wanted them all to be prosecuted for murder. You're talking, that's a serious crime, is murder. And so they wanted them all to be prosecuted. They want them all to do life in prison. They paid out Breonna Taylor's family, Jesse Jackson and the rest of the crooks. You know, they came out. You ready? They came out, you know, in full force. And so now it's, you know, Sergeant Mattingly is back. I'm going to ask you the question again so people who may have just jumped in can hear it. I'll just, you know, have my explain to my audience, like, what was your life like? You know, how did the backlash and all of that occur in your life after this shooting? I'm presuming that you felt more of it when you got at the hospital, but just explain how stuff started to hit the fan once it went public.
Well, the shooting happened on March 13th, and that was the day that nationwide, you know, we went on the coronavirus lockdown. So that consumed all the news and all the radio. And I thought, man, you know, we skated by on this one, because what you were talking about before I lost connection was how people police. And since 2015, since Michael Brown, I mean, everything changed after that. And so I know that's when your career in this took off, but everything changed for policing as far as anytime a police shooting came out, the first thing every cop would go, did they shoot a black guy or a white guy? I mean, that's ridiculous. You have to ask that, you know, instead of was it a good shoot? That's all that should be asked is, was it a good shoot? But that was never the case. It was always, man, was it a white black guy or black guy? Because white officers didn't want to be stuck in the middle of that. I know I didn't, you know, because you knew you were going to be scrutinized more so than ever before. And so coronavirus hit. We thought, man, maybe we dodged this bullet, literally. And but then all of a sudden, the Ahmaud Arbery thing happened, and Ben Crump got on that, and then he got on our case. But then, and before the George Floyd thing happened, I could feel Louisville starting to heat up. Crump got on there and he was saying ridiculous stuff like, oh, she was in her bed, they were at the wrong place, and her local attorney was doing the same thing. Her family got on saying she didn't even know Glover, and why would the cops be there, and you know, all this stuff. And you're sitting there going, no, I'm screaming at the TV, this ain't true, this isn't true. And our good old mayor and chief just sat on their hands and wouldn't say a word, bunch of cowards, and you know, afraid they're going to lose some votes, or I don't know why they did it. And you know, we called and said, please, can you at least put the truth out? You don't have to get into the case. Just put the truth out. We were at the right house, that she wasn't in bed, that her name is on the warrant, her house is on the warrant, her car's on the warrant, all these different things that they were lying about. And their answer to that was simply, oh, we can't do this because it'll set precedent for future cases. And I was like, so you want the city to burn to not set a precedent for future cases? You do what you want anyway. So you could tell this time and not next time. If we had body cam, they'd be released within 5 hours. And our names were already put out, but you can't tell the truth about the case. And they didn't have any answers for that. They just said, we can't talk about it. And so when all this stuff started picking up, probably about May 17th, I think is when it finally kicked off real big and things started to happen. But then George Floyd happened. And we all know how south, you know, the country went after that. Yeah. And instantly, Crump then had even a bigger platform because he was the attorney for that case as well. So then when that happened, that's when all hell broke loose. And I remember I was out of town May 24th, I think it was. And that was when the first real threats started coming into our family. And I was 2,500 miles away. And I get a call from my boss, and she said, John, where you at? And I told her where I was at. She was like, where's your wife and kid? And I told her, and she was like, I'm going to send my partner, or a guy I worked with, Kevin, over to get them. And I said, what's up? And she said, there's been some threats that have come through from some pretty good informants that they've got a hit out on you guys, or that they're coming after you guys, your family and you. And I was like, oh crap, you know, I can't do anything. I'm far away. So I felt helpless. And, you know, as a cop, we're such type A personalities. We want to be able to go in and fix things. And here I was stuck 2,500 miles away and feeling hopeless and mad and everything, all the emotions coming together at one time.
Yeah.
And so I get home, things kind of settle down a little bit. And then all of a sudden, all these riots start. And, you know, the people from outside are coming into Louisville and things are burning and it's just a disaster. And on Sunday, I think it was Sunday, May 31st, I get a call at almost midnight that said, hey, you need to get your family together and you got to get out of your house. The FBI and another federal agency, the ATF, have credible threats that have been verified that they're coming to do something. It's imminent. You know, they've got a hit out on you. We've got several informants coming from different angles telling us this stuff, and they got a hit out on you. It's like, oh crap, what do we do? You know, and our good old department, what they wanted to do, our leaders are just, most of those leaders are gone now. But so downtown is where all these riots were taking place, right? I mean, we'd had 7 people shot the night before during these riots. Things were getting burned. It was chaos. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll put you in the Galt House, which is downtown, right in the middle of it at 4th and Main Street. I was like, wait a minute. Number one, the Galt House is known among the police world that's where a lot of the and I'm gonna say this word, it's gonna tick people off. That's where a lot of the thugs go and they sell dope and they hang out and they throw their parties. And I was like, there's no way I'm going down there. There's zero chance. And so they were like, well, you know, good luck, basically. And so I was able to find somebody who's had a place about an hour and a half from our home, and they allowed us to take our whole family, entire family, parents, kids, my older kids, and we all got out of town and got there. And it was a nightmare. I mean, how do you tell your kids? You call them, wake them up in the middle of the night and say, hey, there's threats on our life and it's verified. We got to get out of the house. And I need you to come with me. Drop what you're doing. Can't go to work tomorrow. Come with us till we can get this figured out. And so that's where it was up to that point.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. I can only imagine. And it's crazy that you do the right thing and that is the response. You use force against somebody who shot you.
Yeah.
And that is their response. Unfortunately, she was in the middle of the gunfire, which subsequently cost her life. And that little coward, you know, he ended up dodging the bullets, you know, literally. So it's crazy that you had to go through that. And then this is kind of where, and I can't remember the timing, man. I like my time and dates are just floating in the air. But around this time is when I think we kind of came in our channel. And for people that are just new to the channel, I made a video and spoke about these things, and we raised money for Sergeant Mattingly, his family, and we were able to raise, I think, $130,000. We were able to send that to you after we had raised it all or whatever, and I'm sure that was an incredible help to you guys. But shout out to y'all on this channel because we were able to raise and support Sergeant Mattingly during that time. So when all of this stuff had hit the fan and all of this, we were able to at least support them in ways that we could, and that was a significant amount for our channel. You know, that's $100,000 is a good amount. So
yeah, let me say real quick, because I've wanted to address your folks for a year now, and you don't even know what your donations did. You don't know it wasn't so much the money as it was the emotional support that they gave us, because at that time we were on such an island. You know, nobody we know in our department has ever been through anything like this. Now they've been shot and they've had to, you know, unfortunately have to shoot other people, but nobody's ever been involved in a national scene and had to move out of their house and had their life turned upside down. It's never been like this. And so nobody knew what to do. Our FOP didn't know what to do. The department obviously didn't know what to do. So we were on our own, reaching out to people, begging for help, trying to find out what we could do next. And, you know, where's this investigation going on this? And there was, other than close friends, now the boots on the ground department, 100% supportive, 100%. But once it got up to upper command, where they were in appointed positions, maybe one guy at the end, when somebody else got promoted, another guy. But for the most part, my assistant chiefs and the chief, I didn't hear from them from probably mid-April. I didn't hear from the chief after the second day of the shooting in the hospital. He came up and talked to me. After that, I never heard from him again. The assistant chief, who later became the chief, I heard from him one other time in mid-April, I think. And other than that, some of the other colonels that I personally knew, one of them that I personally knew, talked to me. But other than that, nothing. If I'd call or if I'd send an email, nothing. And it was just sad. Now, when we go back to the search, one of the misconceptions that's out there, or one of the things that's constantly mentioned, every single article, no drugs or money were found in the apartment.
Yeah.
Well, let me address that real quick. So when there's a shooting involving police, our public integrity unit comes in. They take over the scene. Nobody had been in that apartment to search. We never made it past the threshold. Other than SWAT, when they went in there and cleared it and then brought the medics in for her, there was none of us that went in that apartment that were allowed to search. When public integrity comes in, they write their own search warrant. They come in, they get the forensics, they get the shell casings, they take their pictures, they do all the things they do just like a homicide scene would do. Once they left, that apartment shut off. And the guys who initiated these search warrants reached out to command and said, can we go finish this job now? It's 7:30 in the morning. Can we go execute the search warrant on this house so we can get the evidence we came for? And they were told no. And so that apartment wasn't searched. We don't know what else was in there. We had zero clue. We know there was money there for sure because we got that on jail calls. But other than that, have no idea what was in there. And so that's one of the big frustrating things, that when you see these stories that constantly come out, and that's just a hashtag on all of them, that you're like, oh my gosh, how come no one's ever told anybody this? But you know, with the help of people like you, it gets out, and hopefully people have a little bit of common sense, look at it and go, okay, I get why now. I see why that's, every time I read that now, I understand that that's not a factual line. It's factual that we didn't find anything, but we never searched. So that's a good reason for that.
Yeah, and then on the jail calls, they had mentioned that they need to go back and get something from the house because the cops missed it, which the cops obviously didn't miss it. You guys didn't have an opportunity to do a thorough search, and so you didn't get a chance to go in and get what they got. But I think it was money that they said, hey, go back to the house and get money. The cops didn't get it. Yep. Also, I want people to understand this. You know, Kenneth Walker, they didn't come to the door right away, right? You guys were announcing, knocking initially, and you had to ram the door multiple times to even get in, to even force entry. And so this gave them enough time to get out of the bed, to come to the door, and to, you know, they could have done all kind of other stuff. And then after Breonna was shot, he didn't come to the door right away either. You know, he was in the house for a while. Go ahead.
16 minutes, he didn't come to the door.
So think about, yeah, go ahead, John.
Well, I'll give you a bombshell here that people don't know about. So the courtesy officer that lives in that apartment, I'll probably catch some flack for this, I don't care. The courtesy officer that lives in that apartment, he went to middle school and high school with Kenneth Walker. He's friends with him. He knows his mom. He said he talked to him several times. In an interview they did with him, he said he's talked to him several times as he goes through there, and you know, he'll stop and talk to him and whatever. And when this went down, Kenneth Walker's mom, because Kenny called his mom on the phone instead of calling the police or coming out and getting help for Breonna, he called his mom, and he told her, according to this officer who knows his mom, he said his mom came to him on scene. She was the first one there. She came to him and said, Kenny called and said they're at the door. And she said, I said, who, baby? Who's at the door? And he said, the police. I got to go. I'll call you back, and hung up. And all this time, him saying, I didn't know who was at the door. I ain't got a clue who was at the door. I don't know. We were getting robbed. But let me tell you a little background on Kenny Walker, too. So when they did a search warrant on his phone, they found that he sells pills, weed, pictures of his different guns, which guns, good. We're in America. He didn't have a felony conviction. He had been locked up for carrying a concealed deadly weapon a few years before, and the prosecutor dropped it. And
surprise.
But in his text messages in there, they talk about robbing people and how they do it. And he said, they said, man, we got this good lick. He said, how much is it? Because on big cases, I like to go set up and see what happens and basically scope it out, just like we do. You know, you do your intel. And so my thought is, and we've had many of these cases, and y'all probably had them there too, where dope dealers would get home invaded. They would get robbed. And the method that would take place would be the bad guys would come and act like the police doing a search warrant on the house, and they kick their door in and say police, and then get them in there and rob them. So I don't know if that was his MO, how they did it. And so he assumed that was coming back on him, or what's going on there. But this guy wasn't some little saint, you know, and he gets on there in these interviews on ABC and NBC and crying, and she was the love of my life, and we were going to get married and all this stuff. 2 days after after he was in jail, he's calling this other girl trying to hook up with her.
Yep.
And she goes, man, Breonna just died. And he's like, man, I don't care.
Yep. And that's all on
your life. You don't care.
Yep. That's all on the 911 calls that we have on the Tatum report. It's all on there. You can listen to all of them. He's on there trying to hook up with another chick and know for a fact Breonna then got killed. Now, is a dude softer than the bag of marshmallows? He probably is, because he was screaming and crying on the phone when she got shot. However, people got to understand, man, the fruit don't fall too far from the tree. You know, you got the birds of the same, feather flock together, whatever you say it. These people are all in the same boat. You don't date a girl that's heavily involved with other drug dealers and you a saint. It's not happening. Right. And that dude was in there for that amount of time after Breonna had gotten shot, and who God knows what he was doing. God knows what kind of drugs they probably had that he flushed down the toilet. I mean, he did not come out right away. In
15 minutes.
15 minutes. And that's think about it, that's a long time. And here's another thing. Like, I know how policing works. And so when people were like, they knocked, but they didn't announce. I said, nah, that it could happen, but police officers want their lives to be protected as well. So there's no reason for you to knock and not announce if you have a no-knock warrant, which means you could have just rammed the door and went in there anyway without having a knock. So when you guys had given some initial knocks, to not announce would be suicide, because then somebody would have an opportunity to say, well, I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, it's foolish. It's foolish. And the whole reason people ask too, why didn't you do the no-knock then if it was a no-knock warrant? Well, when they got the warrant signed, it was for no-knock, but that was because they weren't sure where Jamarcus Glover would be, because the no-knock is on the person as far as his criminal history, the dangerous nature that he is. And so they didn't know, because he bounced back and forth from her apartment, if he'd be at her apartment at that time or if he'd be down on Elliott. So they got a no-knock warrant signed for all of them. Well, since they had a tracker on his car and a ping on his phone, they knew exactly where he was at. That night when we did the brief, it no longer fit the parameters of being a no-knock warrant. So we were trying to do the right thing by knocking and announcing, because if you do the no-knock and it gets to court and they go, well, why'd you do a no-knock on this? Breonna has no history. She wasn't dangerous. There was no cameras, no dogs, no, all the different things that you have to combine to make it a no-knock. And so we did the right thing, and this is the outcome.
Yeah. So let's talk about that real quick, because, man, I would, like I say, people, it's very difficult if you never served a warrant, or if you've never been on a SWAT team and stuff like that. People don't really understand this. And people got really upset with me when I said that you got to be crazy to get rid of no-knock warrants. You just, and you may think differently, John, but for me, you got to be crazy to get rid of no-knock warrants. Like, that's all we did was no-knocks when I was on the SWAT team. And our regional team, which was the county, they got banned for no-knock because they shot a guy 170 times or something. It was a bad situation. So they got banned. But in the city, we had a chance to no-knock, and it was incredibly effective because these people were asleep. They didn't see it coming. They didn't know what was going to happen. They couldn't flush drugs. They couldn't run. They couldn't get a gun. I mean, they literally in the bed, and we just blow up in there. And before they know it, it's flashbangs going off. The lights are flashing. They're blind. They can't hear nothing. And this is not. And I'll let you jump into this, but it's not just for drug dealers. I was a part of a no-knock warrant for a pedophile in the state of Arizona. He was in the nation, he was like top 5. Sharers of material with kids on it in the whole country. He was top 5. This was one of the biggest dudes in the nation for sharing this explicit content. And what the FBI did, and I was just on containment, but the FBI SWAT team came in, and just imagine if they knocked on the door. Of course he would delete all of his stuff. He could probably shoot himself. They wouldn't be able to hold him accountable. So what were we going to say, John?
Yeah, I was going to say the whole point in moving quick or moving, not staying outside the door knocking for a minute is because you have the psychological advantage when you go through that door. Because like you said, they get confused. Even the ones that over the years have said, oh man, police come at me, I'm going to kill them all, I'm going to die by cop, all that. Every time when you go fast and hard at them, what do? They just don't know what to do. They give up because freak them out. And we gave this guy a minute to get dressed, to get his gun, to tell his girl, wake her up. It doesn't make sense. I wish we'd done things different. When I talked in 2020 and they were like, what would you do different? I said, we go faster, we go harder. They were like, oh, how dare you? And I'm like, she'd be alive if we did. That's the whole point. she'd be alive.
Well,
It's a win-win.
Let's give a scenario here. So Jamarcus Glover, I mean, what's his name? It's Jamarcus Glover, right?
Glover.
I want to say Jamarcus Russell, which was the football player that was a bust. But Jamarcus Glover, you think about it. They served a no-knock at that house, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a no-knock. The SWAT hit the house. Nobody got hurt. Nobody died. Nobody got injured. Nothing. The place where you knocked, somebody got killed. And the reason why is because you give them an opportunity to do exactly what Kenneth Walker did. If they would have forced entry, and then you guys didn't have a reason to, because from my understanding, y'all believe that she was the only one there. Or
Correct.
maybe so she was a girl without any criminal history, no ownership of a firearm or whatever the case may be. That should have been a boom. We knock on the door. She come to the door. If she don't, we breach the door, and she's like, "Okay, I don't want to smoke."
Right.
But it ended up not happening like that. However, if there would have been more of a sense of urgency, knowing what you know now, nobody would have gotten killed, because he would still be laying in the bed, and he probably would have peed himself and started crying when the rubber hit the road, because you could clearly see he wasn't about that life when he started screaming and crying on the phone on a 911 phone call when his girlfriend got killed. And then the funny thing is that everybody knew he was wrong. Even on the 911 calls, Jamarcus Glover and some of the other guys were communicating with their family and saying that homeboy got Breonna killed. He got Bree killed. He shouldn't have shot at the police officers. So they knew the dude was shady in the first place.
Right. And everybody says we had plain clothes on. Well, we did, but we had vests that said police. Yeah. I mean, we were more visible than a guy in uniform would be. And it's no different than SWAT. They wear the vest. It's not an actual police uniform. It's the SWAT outfit that says police on it. And it was the same way, but again, that gets twisted to make it sound like we were in there. Even her attorney, Sam Aguiar, who, man, I can't stand that guy, and I hope he's watching this, said that he thinks we were going in there to rob them. And I'm like, are you kidding me? We did a brief with 50 people, and they all know we're going there, and we're going to go rob somebody? I mean, how dumb does that have to be? But people believe it because an attorney says it. Yeah. And because the city settled without going through any of this discovery where the public can know all the truth.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we were able to expose it on the Tatum report and put all that information out there so people can go watch it and see it for themselves. I want to jump back to a point that I made, because I saw a couple of people with a question mark in the comment section when I said that our regional team shot a guy 170 times. Let me just explain kind of how that happened. Of course, they blew this way out of proportion. They said the police officers just bombarded in his house. So what happened was this guy was a former military. He was a Marine. I think he had gotten out. I don't know if he retired, but he had gotten out the Marine. He was selling drugs. And when the police officer breached the front door, he was laying on the floor with an AR in a prone position with an AR, finger on the trigger. Now, it went south because they pulled up in the SWAT vehicle, and they did announcements 30 times in Spanish and in English. And because the wife said she didn't understand English and that they never gave announcements. They gave it in Spanish and in English. When they got to the front door, they had this big wrought iron door that they had to breach. And so they pulled the door off. They kicked the door in. I mean, they rammed the door. And as soon as they rammed the door, the lead guy fell. And when he fell, the guy behind him saw the gun and started firing. So almost simultaneously, the 8-man unit or so heard a shot, saw their fellow person fall, and everybody started shooting through the door until they didn't see the guy move anymore. And that ended up being 100 and something shots, and then he got hit like 70 times. If you ask me, it kind of seemed like it was overkill. The video is on the internet, so people can go watch it. It looked bad, but at the same time, the dude did have an AR. It wasn't loaded, which I don't know what he was thinking. It wasn't even loaded. So after the fact, they criticized the cops because they said it wasn't even loaded. And it's like, okay, do you think they went over there and checked his finger and make sure that they slide back, make sure there was no ammo in it? Like, no, he got lit up. But they lost their privileges of a no-knock warrant, which that was an announced warrant, but then they just rammed the door. They didn't officially knock. They announced, but they didn't knock on the door. So that's kind of how that sprung. But let's go to another point, man. I mean, what are your thoughts on no knock? I gave mine. What are your thoughts on a no knock warrant?
I think they're vital in a lot of situations. I think now if you're going just for dope, whatever. Number one, the courts aren't holding people accountable for narcotics anymore anyway. So maybe on that one, you don't do it. Now I know our SWAT team has gone to a knock even when they breach the door, they call them out. They wait. And as frustrating as that is, as a narcotics detective or a supervisor, knowing you're dope for the next 5 minutes and getting flushed down the commode. I mean, it's just, you're like, oh my gosh, because we're not like the feds. The feds can put you in prison because of communication about selling dope or stuff they bought 2 years ago from you, as opposed to locals who you need the dope in hand for any state court to be willing to prosecute anything. And because we've gotten so soft on criminals that it's just frustrating. So yes, the no knock, especially on, look at even something as like a hostage situation. Why would you want to let that guy know that you're there? When you ban all no knocks, it's ridiculous, because you're painting police in a corner and taking certain tools away from them. Now, if you want to criticize it and narrow it down some, I'm fine with that. But to eliminate them altogether, I think it's a mistake. And I think it's going to come back to get some innocent people killed on the other side of it.
Yeah, and I think that people don't understand how no-knock warrants work in the first place. I think some people may have the perception that you just go to a house and the police officer decide, we have a warrant for this house and we're going to go in no knock. No, you have to go through a judge. A judge has to hear your affidavit that you have to read out to him. You have to explain all the elements of the case and why it is exigent for you to go into somebody's house without knocking, which is an incredibly dangerous thing. But you have to point out every legitimate reason why you are doing that. You have to have evidence. Like when we used to do warrants, we had our informants. They bought dope for them on 50 occasions. They saw guns in the residence. Here's their social media where they're claiming that they're going to shoot it out with the police. They flushed drugs in the past, so we have all of it. We can confirm that there's no children in the residence. We did, X amount of drive-bys. We have surveillance. We have, all of these things that we have to prove to a judge in the middle of the night is what a judge will say, okay, you have enough or you do not. And those things are come down to an external agency, in another branch, which is the judge, the judicial branch. They come down and give you the final say, and in good faith. And so that's kind of how it works, man. You don't just arbitrarily kick in people's doors and do stuff like that. It don't happen that way.
You never want the tragedy, number one, of anybody dying at your hands. But number two, you especially don't want somebody who may be part of the game, but Breonna, in her case, she wasn't the one shooting at us. She wasn't the one that shot me. She was, unfortunately, it was tragic the way in this very narrow hallway that he just bailed out. And I think she was trying to follow him in the room is what happened. And that's when she got struck, just due to the way that her body was laying on the floor and stuff. But so, yeah, nobody wants tragedy. And the fact that people say no knocks are more dangerous, I don't know all the statistic rundown, but it's no more dangerous than after you breach a door and go in it and you're clearing separate rooms. And for a fact, you don't know what's on the other side of that next door you're going to. And that's always a danger. Anytime you go through any door in that house, you don't know what you're coming up on. And the more time you give them, like we talked about earlier, the more time they have to prepare and be waiting for you. So,
right. And when you
both of them are dangerous. Everything we do is dangerous.
Yeah, everything we do. And I'll add this. Just patrol is even more dangerous than SWAT knock and announce or no knock warrants, because when you're in patrol, you have no idea what you're getting into some of these times. So a domestic violence could get you killed because the boyfriend is waiting there to gun you down. You have no intel. You don't know what's happening. You don't have ballistic gear. Like, on the SWAT team, we had rifle plates and all kinds of stuff. We had rifles. We're prepared to take it to anybody. In patrol, man, you really just have your handgun, unless you get previous information that you didn't bring out the long gun. But you got your handgun, you go in to knock, and you got two guys there, and then they blow shots through the door. You have no intel. You have no idea how many people in there. You didn't go and buy a scan of residence before you went in. You don't have no surveillance. You're not on the phone with the informant, getting real-time information. You may go on a call with somebody who's not tactically inclined. You don't get to necessarily pick your backup unit. I don't know. Some people probably do, but in our situation, it's like you get the closest unit there. Yeah. And if you got to act, you got to wait till they get there and you got to go do it. You can't wait till the next person that's in line that's going to do a better job. You kind of got to respond. That's way more dangerous than a no-knock warrant could ever be. Let's see. Somebody said, I was a victim of a no-knock. Let's see. I'm going to read this comment. It says, I was a victim of a no-knock. They got the wrong address and faulty information. Flashbang, grenades tossed into the living room, door knocked off the hinges, face down, handcuffed with gun in my face. Now, in a situation like that, of course you can't. It's like somebody saying never go outside when there's a thunderstorm because you may get struck by lightning. You can't just stay in the house for the rest of your life because there may be a possibility of something going wrong. I would argue that 99.9999% of no knocks are going to be the right address. To this day, I don't know how you get the address wrong. I mean, we went through. We used to have to, when you used to do the drive-bys, we used to have to write down the address, and we used to have to say the address every time we say, like a certain person that's going to be on the entry team, the driver, you have to say the address every time you speak because they say you, so you know exactly what address you're going to. We would literally drive by and make sure this is the address. Here's the hinges on the door. Like we would verify that this is the address. We would verify who lives next door. In some cases, depending on the environment, we would contact the people next door just to see where they at, you know, and
right.
and then we'll breach the house. So I don't know if you guys have the same experience.
And at the end of the day, cops are humans. Mistakes are made. So, you know, I feel for the guy who made that comment to you about, you know, being a mistaken target. But I mean, mistakes happen. We're humans. And unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but we are held accountable to those mistakes. People think we aren't. People think we have free range to do whatever we want. That's not the case.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I remember being on the SWAT team and like they used to just hammer us, man. If you were in training and you shot the wrong target or anything like that, I mean, you get smoked. And if you shoot the wrong target in certain scenarios, you'll get kicked off the team. They have zero tolerance for you accidentally shooting the wrong person or doing any of that stuff. Like you will get kicked off the SWAT team, and rightfully so. Everybody took pride in that. And we will always bring up these scenarios where cops did it wrong, and that will be a training learning experience for us. But you know, it's interesting that people don't understand policing. And I would argue this, people do not understand policing in general. I mean, even people who support police don't have an idea of how these things happen. You know, like just the basic patrols and how call for service come out and what it's like to pull a person over on a traffic stop. You know, it's nothing to do with race. And it's not like you can even see what race they are anyway. And these things are very incredibly difficult. I wish people would understand more.
I wish they do
ride-alongs. Right.
Just go do ride-alongs with your local departments. I mean, that's key. I think every elected official in a city, especially like city councils and mayor and stuff, they ought to have to do a week or two ride-alongs in the different communities to see the steps that they're.
Oh man, I think his camera froze again. We're gonna have him back in a second. And I think I'll pick up where you left off when it comes to doing ride-alongs. I mean, very simply put, you can go to now with the COVID, I don't know what they're gonna do, but you can go to your precinct or your division or whatever they call the particular division place where police officers are at in your neighborhood. You can go there and request to do a ride-along. All you would have to do is make sure you're not a convicted felon. Make sure you don't have warrants for your arrest because they're not going to be nice to you. They're going to probably take you to jail when you come for the ride along. They may even let you sign up for the ride along. And when you get there, they take you to jail. So if you don't have any warrants and you're not a convicted felon or nothing crazy, you can do a ride along. And I'm telling you, man, a ride along is what changed my life. I mean, I literally became a police officer because of a ride along. And so going on a ride along, you get exposed to a lot of different things. Like you get to see stuff that you would never see. Some of my ride-alongs saw some stuff that they would never unsee. Domestic violence that went incredibly south. A man put a knife on me while my ride-along was in the car. You know, I'm getting out of the car. He put a knife on me. Thank God he wasn't about that life because he dropped it. But women getting beat to where blood is coming out of their eyes. I mean, one of my ride-alongs was on a car where we had a shooting. We went from the shooting to what they call a 53, which means a person who died in a motor vehicle accident. And that person it was 3 people in the car. One person died. That person hit a light pole at 80 miles per hour in a small little 2-door car. So you know that was a drastic scene there. What does my ride-along see? You know, a lot of stuff. I chased people while I had a ride-along. Obviously, they had to stay in the car. I was in we did a high-risk stop on a GTA where we had K9 and guns drawn. And I mean, it was all play. I mean, and I had a ride along that was afraid to get out the car. She didn't want to get out of the car on traffic stops. She didn't want to get out the car on regular calls for service. She just didn't want to get out. She was terrified. She was a BLM police officers are racist type of person. And I said, come do a ride along with me and I'll show you the dark side. And she couldn't even get out the car. She was terrified. I think she only did a half a shift because she was terrified of what we did. So I appreciate it. And thank you all for the super chats. I'm gonna bring Sergeant Mattingly back in just 1 second. I think the YouTube is trying to get him out of here. No, I'm just playing. Let's see. Python, thanks so much for the super chat. Let's see. Ronald, thanks so much for the super chat. Ronald, thank you much for 3 super chats. Vivian, thank you for the super chat. And Ronald, thank you for 4 super chats. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. So thank you for 5. So 5 super chats. I really appreciate it. And thank you all. Y'all make sure y'all hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button, hit the like button. I'm gonna bring Sergeant Mattingly back in. If you guys have any questions, you can ask them. Tag my name or do a super chat. So if you want to do it through super chat, you can do it. Y'all, I think y'all know how to do the super chat. It's a little $ button. You can push it. You can give $1.99 or you can give $500. Don't be giving your STEMI checks to me. All right. So if you have a question, just give a reasonable amount that you're comfortable with supporting the channel with, or you can just tag me, push at the Officer Tatum, and I'll be able to see the comment because my name will be highlighted. So I know that you're asking a question. All right, let's bring Sergeant Mattingly back. All right, brother. I think the internet gods are trying to get rid of you, man.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think the mayor must have got a hold of this channel. I don't know.
Yeah, it's too much truth coming out here, man. You know, the funny thing is that this is one of the first channels. I mean, this is one of the first live streams, or this is the second live stream I've ever done that people were not getting notifications on. And I don't know if it's because I said, put your name in the title or Breonna Taylor. People were, you know, it was weird. But I'm gonna grab a couple of these super chats. Somebody asked a question. Let's see, Brandon. People just saying what's up to me. Brenda, thank you so much. Big love to you and your brother Tatum. God bless. So she's saying big ups to you. But is there anything that you want to say or to get out there that haven't previously been stated, or you know, some misperception that you haven't been able to tell to the public?
Man, there's so much stuff. I mean, like when I talked to you last time, a couple weeks ago, I was heading to Alabama, and I spoke down there at a narcotics conference, and I spoke for 3 hours, and probably still have another 3 hours of stuff I could say. That with this case, and the unfortunate part is, you as citizens out there, if you can just support your police. I know, like Brandon said, there's some jerks out there. There's some cops I don't like. There's plenty of them. Egotistical, arrogant, whatever. But the fact of the matter is, they're still going out willing to lay their life down to save yours. And that's the thing we did our whole career. You know, you go into areas that people cuss you, they hate you, they call you all kinds of names, but you're there willing to die for them. You're putting your hand on their hole, trying to save their life. You're hugging their family members when somebody gets gunned down. There's a lot of things that people don't see behind the scenes that police, they only know you once things go bad. And,
right.
And unfortunately, that's the way it is. And the sad thing with our mayor and our chief is that they had all this information. They had the background of Breonna. They had the background of Kenneth Walker. They had all these things at their fingertips for months. And I reached out to, in my book, I dime people out. And so it'll be coming out here soon. And hopefully you'll put it up here and let people know where they can get it. But I named names of people in powerful positions that I talked to before the very first riot even happened. And I said, here's what they're saying. Here's the truth. Please get it out. And one of them is a really powerful guy in the city who's got a lot of pull. And he said, I'll do a press conference Monday to say what the mayor's not saying. Never did it. Matter of fact, he went on a bunch of live shows on the news and stuff and basically degraded us and kind of lied about what happened when he knew the truth. And when I confronted him about that later, he said, well, I'm not in a position to say that. Then they would know you told me. I don't care. They know I told you. Who cares? Just get the truth out, because people's lives are in danger now, not just mine, the other officers involved. Everybody had death threats on them. And so I think the main thing is just keep supporting the police. You know, we're in a time now in our country that is volatile, and they are pitting black against white, vaxxed against non-vaxxed, police against everybody. So I'd say we just come together and put all that silliness aside and all the fighting and just, we got to get back to God. I mean, I know you talk about it a lot on here, but I mean, that's where we've slipped up. We've messed up because we've strayed so far away, and it's coming back to get us.
Yeah. I think it is, man. You hit the nail on the head, man. Getting away from God is going to come back and bite us. And it's prophesied that these things will happen. Unfortunately, it's happened a lot more in our lifetime. So let me get a couple of these things. Warrior, thanks so much for the super chat. Cheryl, thank you for the super chat. Michael, did the girl on the ride along change her perception afterwards? And somebody else asked that same question. Akil Brazier asked the same question. Did the girl change her mind? I don't know. I didn't follow up with her. At the end of the day, I kind of think she liked me and she really just wanted to do a ride along to impress me because our kids went to the same school. So, of course she was afraid. And of course she was caught in no man's land when I was driving down the street during the day. I was driving down the street and I said, what race is that person in front of me? What race is this person? What race is that car? Okay, I'm pulling over another person. What race is this person? She could never tell me what race the person is because it's nearly impossible to see somebody's race when you're driving behind them, even in the daytime. Most people have tint, and when they don't have tint, it's hard to see through the car in the back of their head. I mean, you're looking at a license plate, trying to run the plate and make sure the person isn't doing something weird. You're not really worrying about their race. So I don't really know if she changed. I mean, I think it probably gave her a different perspective now. Did she go along and change? I mean, I don't know. Somebody said, can Mattingly wear his free man t-shirt next time he is on the show? You have a shirt called Free Man?
I had it on tonight, and my wife was like, man, don't wear that. You're a jerk. Looks like you're being arrogant. And I was like, I'm not being arrogant. It's what it is.
Yeah, you should be proud, man. These criminals get out of jail after killing people, and they like, oh, I'm free. They celebrate themselves. And you did the right thing, and you took a bullet for it. You should be able to celebrate that. So next time you come on, you got to wear it. Let's see. Somebody said, do you have any opinion on the Daniel Holtzclaw case? Do you know that? Familiar with that?
I know nothing about it.
Holtzclaw? I'm not sure. I don't know about that either. So let me see. There was another super chat. It says, Tatum, thanks, and say hello to my old friend John. Some Albert C. said, what's up?
Yeah.
You know who that is?
I do know who that is. We call him brother.
Is that right?
Yeah, brother.
That's funny. Let's see. Tango Romero. Do you know who initiated the hit on you and your family? Y'all do?
Yeah.
Were you able to get justice for that or no?
Absolutely not. So if anybody knows anything about the FBI, and like I said, I had task force officers that worked with the FBI. I had secret clearance with the FBI. You have to go through. It took about 8 months to get it. So I know how the FBI works. Everything they do is very meticulous, and it has to get approved through DC. So to even open a case, it takes a week or two, generally, unless it's an emergency. So every case they open, they will leave it open. For instance, they've been investigating us since May of last year, and we still don't have any answers on where they're going with it. So I might wear my free man shirt in jest, but who knows what's going to come? We don't know how things play out. But the point is, they've had that investigation open for 16, 17 months and nothing. They had this case open for 10 days, even after they had reliable informants who were working OSA-DEF cases for them, buying guns from the bike club that Mama was a part of. She's part of a club that sells dope and guns. And the FBI, after 10 days, closed the case, didn't tell us about it, lied about it. Matter of fact, at least the AUSA on the case did, to my attorney, because I kept saying, man, I've got somebody on the inside who's telling me the case is closed. I need to know for my family's safety, because it's one thing to know you got a threat and to be looking for it. It's another thing to live in no man's land where you have no information. It could be coming from any side and you just don't know because nobody's looking at it. And so the thing we kept hearing was the supervisor was saying the optics look bad. The optics look bad. And we're going, wait a minute, they got a hit out on 3 cops and their families and you're worried about optics? Well, the election was coming up, all these things happening. They knew the DOJ was going to change in Washington. And so they have to, it becomes very political. Now, again, the FBI agents that were doing the case, they were ticked off about it. They were mad that they were pulled off the case, but they were told to leave it alone because it looked bad going after a national victim's family. And so they pulled the plug on it. They didn't tell us about it. We've done Freedom of Information Act, tried to get it. We were told both times, we're going to walk it through. It's going to get approved. We'll give you the case file. They came back and said, oh, since nobody was charged, we can't give the case file on it. We won't give you a case file on it. You know, I'm thinking, okay, we're the victims here, right? Because we've got the death threat out on us. We're the victims. Where is this victim advocate stuff that they pound their chest about, that they take care of people? It didn't happen. I never received one phone call on it, not one email. I reached out to them, got nothing back. But we got nothing. I mean, not case is closed, stick it up your rear end. We're not doing it. Nothing. Just they stuck their head in the sand and pretend like it didn't happen. And if finally the AUSA, after blowing off a meeting with us 3 weeks later, told us, oh yeah, the case is closed and that's all we're going with it. We're done.
Crazy,
so
man.
It was pretty devastating, because you think, you know, we're in this together. You know, the FBI is supposed to be the good guys, and I think they are for the most part. I don't want to say they're not all, but I think once you get in a political position, and I've got some angles on that in the book too. You know, we had a lady that worked for us named Amy Hess, and she was the highest ranking female ever in the FBI. She worked under Jim Comey, if it tells you anything. And the SAC here in Louisville was one of her good friends, and apparently they talk daily. And she's, from what I've been told by people that worked for her in the past, she's a very liberal person, very BLM, maybe not supporter, but she's an apologist for him. And her and this guy talk every day. That was the SAC of the Louisville office. And apparently there was possibly some going on with her call, because she worked for Mayor Fisher, that possibly she called and said some things like, hey, this might look bad on your career. Optics look bad. Optics was her word. That's what she used in all of her little speeches, was optics. And so the case got shut down miraculously, kind of weird. Nobody would talk about it. And since then, that SAC has been promoted to DC. So
yeah,
we know
how to. Yeah, we know how to go. Yeah, your audio is a little iffy. I think you froze again. I'll pull it back in. It's no big deal, man. You know, people can't be perfect. If this was a big old crazy show, you know, we'll have people in the studio. But let's see. I want to answer this question. I mean, this is a pretty good question. I think you're still frozen. I can see you down there. You're still frozen. You might want to just reconnect, and we'll jump back in it. I'm gonna answer this question real quick from a person who asked the question. It says, Officer Tatum, how has things you have seen change you spiritually after being a cop? Question for both of you guys. So I'll let if Officer Mattingly, Sergeant Mattingly can come back in, I'll let him answer it as well. I mean, let me say it like this. I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. Like, it made me realize that, like, God does things that we do not understand. Like, that's what made me realize. I've seen really good people take a L in the worst way. That kid that lost his life in a high-speed pursuit. I mean, not high-speed pursuit. He was going 80 miles per hour, hit a pole. The one that died had nothing to do with the situation. He was just coming home. The guy offered him a ride. The guy was drunk, drove and hit a pole. The girl in the backseat lost her legs, and the guy in the front seat who was drunk, nothing happened to him. And then the kid in the passenger seat took a L. And so it made me feel like that I can't live in a fairy tale world about God. Like, some people think God is just going to make it rainbows and unicorns for you your whole life, and that somehow if you're a great person that you can't take a L. And that, when I being a police officer, made me realize that that's not the case. Like, you can be a great person, you can be a man that served God, and you can be a great person. You can still take a L. And when I say take a L, you can be murdered, you can be killed, you can be hung, you can be tortured and murdered. Like, God is just on a different level than we are on. So it really made me realize that, like, don't walk around acting like you're too good for something bad to happen to you just because you're a Christian. Like, you can get done dirty in this life. And it makes me feel like God is more worried about the next life than maybe this life. Will he protect you from some things? Yeah, I think God will. But God will also let you get murdered and burned alive. And that's just the way it is. And so being a police officer and going through these experiences made me realize, maybe have a more realistic approach to how God actually operates. So, John, I don't know if you have any commentary on this. A person asked the question, you know, how have being a police officer changed you spiritually? Like, did it make you more spiritual, less spiritual? Like, how did it affect you as a Christian?
Well, it does open your eyes to a lot, because there's two sides to it. Number one, fortunately, I was raised in a neighborhood that was less than appealing. It was a low income, dangerous area that I grew up in. So I was exposed to a criminal element, or, you saw a lot of bad stuff. I remember one night I heard a siren, I heard a gunshot. I looked out the window, and the dude right across the street from me caught one right in the head. So these things weren't foreign to me, but at the same time, my home life, the way I was raised, was in a Christian home. My dad's a pastor. And so I was very insulated from that, even though we lived in that area. I was allowed to play ball at the parks, and, we walked the streets and go to the store and stuff. But as far as hanging out with the criminal element, that didn't happen. And some of that is what juiced me up for wanting to be a police officer. I saw the way people were treated. I saw the dope that was slung, and it drove me nuts as a human being coming up, seeing these young kids get wrapped up in that stuff. But as far as the spiritual side, it just opens your eyes to it, and it makes you realize how many people discount God or spirituality or anything to do with anything that's not self-serving or self-pleasing. Everybody's all about, what's in it for me. There are times that I strayed, and it wasn't because of I say it wasn't because of the job, because the job does change you. When I came on, people say, man, the job's going to change you. And it makes you a little more jaded. It does some stuff to you. But as far as my relationship with God, it never changed that. If anything, there were times that, you depend on him a lot more, because you tend to lean on God more when you're in scarier situations, or when you think your life's in danger. But yeah, the job changed me as a person. I can't say it didn't. For 21 years, it's going to, you see a lot of stuff, a lot of calluses get built up in you that for self-preservation, protection, that you got to do, holding dead babies, or seeing, people's decapitated from car wrecks, different things, just all that encompasses you. So you have to figure it out. But my relationship with God didn't change because of that, not because of the job.
Yeah. And I think my relationship with God was strengthened to a certain degree too, because I had to rely on God a lot more, seeing all of that stuff. So not only did I get a realistic approach of being like, man, I could be murdered today, as an innocent police officer doing everything right. Some dude can fire off a shot lucky and hit me right in the head, and I die, and my family have to live without me. And that doesn't change God. That doesn't mean that God is any worse or anything to anybody. It's just God allows these things to happen. But I had to rely on God a lot more as a police officer, because I went through my entire career. I never said a curse word. And that's just me. I never said a curse word. I tried to be, a good Christian example for people when I was, arresting them or whatever the case may be. So I felt like I had to really trust God. I was going to church every Sunday. I was heavily involved in church. And so I think that it kind of helped my relationship, but it did make me kind of wake up to like being so googly eyed about everything is going to be rainbows because I'm with God, Let me get a couple of super check. Walking in water now. God must be in it to win it. Look up superhuman. Let's see. Lures. Wow, a great message. Love what you stand for, brother. God bless. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Matt. Have you guys seen Laura Logan's documentary about the border on Fox Nation? Watch it if you can. When will law enforcement be allowed to enforce the law? I get it. Okay, Mike, thank you so much. Let's see. Think we need a universal definition for resisting arrest throughout the United States of America? Question mark. It says a lot of these altercations happen because the person resisting arrest and the media does not state why the officer was justified to attempt the arrest. We need more Christians in our country. I agree. RIP Ella French. That's one thing I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna let you go, man. I know you got a family. I think you're on a different time zone than me. But the question is, do we need a universal definition for resisting arrest? I'm gonna comment, and then I'm gonna shoot it to you. I don't think we need it. I just think the media needs to stop lying. That's pretty much it. It's relatively reasonable that if an officer articulate or says to you that you're under arrest in good faith, they must have probable cause. You have to allow that to be the case. So if anybody starts fighting after the point at which the officer is attempting to arrest somebody, they are resisting arrest. We don't need to do a whole legislative session right here on the side on a curb. if the officer is saying you're under arrest, we should believe in good faith that the officer is right, and that person should comply, and then you'll figure it out in court. What's your stance on it?
Yeah, I think once you, like we talked about earlier, once you put somebody in a box and say this is the only thing that consists of resisting arrest, because there's different levels of resisting arrest. You know that there's non-compliance, there's actual physical where they come at you and resist arrest. There's different things that constitute resisting arrest, and therefore your level of reaction goes up as that goes up. You know, when somebody tenses up, they don't want to put their hands behind your back. The struggle is simply grabbing their wrist, trying to get it back, and a lot of that could be helped with more training. You know, our instructor now is a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's done it for 25, 30 years. He's excellent at it, and he shows the new guys stuff that we were never taught. You know, back in the day, we were taught if you resist arrest, common peroneal strikes, you know, different things that were acceptable then, and that if you do it now out of the gate, you're going to prison, or at least your name's going to be all over TV. And the lawsuits are going to come, the city's going to pay out, and the criminal knows that. And that's the main problem. And I think the thing that needs to be done isn't defining what this resisting arrest is, but the problem is these judges and courts aren't holding these people accountable once they go through this. If more people were held accountable for it when they resist arrest, and when the police have to take action, then the word gets out on the street. I mean, it spreads like wildfire, and people know what they can get away with, and people are going to get away with what you let them. It's just the way it is. All of us.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So let me just add this. Somebody said the dude donated $40,000, a $40,000 super chat. Well, actually, he didn't. Hold on, let me fix this. He didn't donate $40,000 super chats. The currency that he donated is in another country. I don't know what COP means, but 40,000 or whatever in that currency. In the actual currency in the United States of America, I don't know what that translates to. If I look at it, I think it translates to about $20, because sometimes the super chats have a certain color, and I think the color orange is like $20. So that's not $40,000. I wish somebody donated $40,000. I will fly you out to Arizona, and we will have a cigar, and I will take you to the most expensive restaurant money can buy. You will stay in the greatest hotel, and you will fly here on a private jet. So if you pay me $40,000, you're gonna get some VIP treatment. But you know, I guess fortunately and unfortunately, you can't give a super chat that big. The biggest super chat that you can give is a $500 super chat, which I've had somebody actually give that once. I had a lady give it on accident once as well. I don't know how she made a $5 into $500. I don't know how she did that, but she did it. And I think she was able to get her money back. You can get your super chat money back. So I think that's somebody said it's $10.31. They did the math. Yeah, I don't know what, I couldn't calculate that. I wish it was 40,000. So, all right. You know, I'm gonna close this interview. I think you guys heard a lot of information from Sergeant Mattingly. I think he did an incredible job. I'm gonna give him an opportunity to tell you guys where you can follow him on social media and different things like that. So let me unmute his mic.
Yeah, I'm having a lot of crackle. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at SGT Mattingly, at Sergeant Mattingly, or Instagram is at Sergeant John Mattingly, JOHN Mattingly. You can feel free to do that. But yeah, man, I appreciate your audience. I mean, you're doing great things, Brandon, and God's using you, and you touch a lot of lives, and you change a lot of hearts, you know, people's view of things, and that's important. Instead of being confrontational and stuff, you simply give facts and let people educate themselves and do their own critical thinking, investigation, and I think that's important. And me and my family, not just me and my wife and kids, but my extended family, appreciate you, appreciate your viewers. And if there's anything we can do in return, we'd love to do it.
Oh man, hey, just pay it forward. That's all we were asked for. Thank you. Yeah, I can hear you. So thank you, man. I'm gonna stay in the back office because I want to chat with you a little bit after this is over. But y'all shout out to Sergeant Mattingly. Y'all make sure y'all go follow him on all the social media platforms. When his book come out, I'll let you guys know. I'll put it in the community tab, and maybe we'll come and do another interview about the book. You know, it's funny that we both are gonna have books out in policing. Probably, I mean, you guys are gonna need to support these books, and the reason why is because you're not gonna get this material anywhere else. You know, I don't really know. I guess I don't know a lot of police officers that have written books that had the opportunity to write a book about stuff that's real, that's really happening, telling the truth, unfiltered, giving the perspective of law enforcement, and not some social justice book talking about how bad police officers are. So this is to be a good opportunity to get some valuable information from two men who were respectable, who did the job. I mean, Sergeant Mattingly did it for 20 some years. I did it for 6.5 years, but at least we have some experiences to share with you guys. And I appreciate you, John, and I'll see you in the back office. Thank you guys for watching. Y'all make sure y'all hit the like button on the way out. Visit the Officer Tatum store. Go get my book, Beating Black and Blue, at beatingblackandblue.com. That link is in the description section. Subscribe to Tatum Clips. That's in the description section. Join Tatum Squad. That's in the description section. So, get involved if you want to get involved. If not, you can just keep watching the videos. I love each and every one of y'all. You don't have to pay money to be involved. You don't have to pay money to be, as a supporter of mine. You don't have to pay money. The support of the channel, it's not about money, right? The likes, the subscribes, the sharing of the videos, all of that stuff is free to you. And I love every single person, whether you're a part of the squad or not. I love you exactly the same. I really appreciate all the support. The channel wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people liking and subscribing to the channel. And so I do appreciate you guys. So until next time, I'll see you guys later. And one day I'm gonna get my theme song back. But I'll see you guys on the next one, man. I'm out.